Hezekiah had led a great revival in Judah, and they trusted the Lord when Sennacherib, king of Assyria, rose against them, and the Lord slew the Assyrian army. The Lord blessed Hezekiah. He repented when he grew proud. The Lord healed him when he became very sick. When he died, his son Manasseh took the throne. He is the longest serving of all the kings of Judah, 55 years. And for most of that time he lived to please himself, and undid many of the reforms that his father had done. The Babylonians came against him, and when he was in exile and in prison, he called upon the Lord, and the Lord heard him, and released him from prison and restored him to his throne. He tried to undo the evil that he had done, but didn't get very far before he died, and his son Ammon took the throne. Ammon followed the former ways of his father, and some of his servants assassinated him within 2 years, and made his son Josiah king at the age of 8. At 8 years of age, Josiah would have been still at school, and the kingdom administered by others. But when he was 16, he set his heart to follow the Lord, and at 20 gave instructions that the temple be cleansed and restored. And in the process they found the book of the law, and when it was read to Josiah, he realized that they had seriously offended. They had not loved the Lord their God with all their heart, mind, soul, and strength. And the book of Deuteronomy spells out very specifically that if they do not keep the law, they will be expelled from the land. Josiah responds with great humility, tearing his clothes and seeking mercy on the Lord. And the prophetess Huldah, when asked, brings the message of the Lord. It will not happen while Josiah is alive. So we continue the account in 2 Chronicles chapter 35. Now Josiah kept a Passover to the Lord in Jerusalem, and they slaughtered the Passover lambs on the 14th day of the first month. And he set the priests in their duties, and encouraged them for the service of the house of the Lord. Then he said to the Levites, who taught all Israel, who were holy to the Lord, "Put the holy ark in the house which Solomon the son of David, king of Israel, built. It shall no longer be a burden on your shoulders. Now serve the Lord your God and his people Israel. Prepare yourselves according to your fathers' houses, according to your divisions, following the written instruction of David, king of Israel, and the written instruction of Solomon his son, and stand in the holy place, according to the divisions of the fathers' houses of your brethren, the lay people, and according to the division of the fathers' houses of the Levites. So slaughter the Passover offerings. Consecrate yourselves, and prepare them for your brethren, that they may do according to the word of the Lord by the hand of Moses." Then Josiah gave the lay people lambs and young goats from the flock, all for Passover offerings for all who were present, to the number of 30,000, as well as 3,000 cattle. These were from the king's possessions, and his leaders gave willingly to the people, to the priests, and to the Levites. Hilkiah, Zechariah, and Jehiel, rulers of the house of God, gave to the priests the Passover offerings, 2,600 from the flock, and 300 cattle. Also Cananiah, his brothers, Shemaiah and Nethaniah, and Hashabiah and Jeiel and Jozabad, chief of the Levites, gave to the Levites for Passover offerings 5,000 from the flock, and 500 cattle. So the service was prepared, and the priests stood in their places, and the Levites in their divisions according to the king's command. And they slaughtered the Passover offerings, and the priests sprinkled the blood with their hands, while the Levites skinned the animals. Then they removed the burnt offerings, that they might give them to the divisions of the fathers' houses of the lay people, to offer to the Lord, as it is written in the book of Moses. And so they did with the cattle. And they roasted the Passover offerings with fire according to the ordinance, but the other holy things they boiled in pots, in cauldrons, and in pans, and divided them quickly among all the people. Then afterward they prepared portions for themselves and for the priests, because the Levites, the sons of Aaron, were busy in offering burnt offerings and fat until night. Therefore the Levites prepared portions for themselves, and for the priests, the sons of Aaron. And the singers, the sons of Asaph, were in their places according to the command of David, Asaph, Heman, and Jeduthun, the king's seers. Also the gatekeepers were at each gate. They did not have to leave their position, because their brethren, the Levites, prepared portions for them. So all the service of the Lord was prepared the same day, to keep the Passover, and to offer burnt offerings on the altar of the Lord, according to the command of King Josiah. And the children of Israel who were present kept the Passover at that time, and the feast of unleavened bread for 7 days. There had been no Passover kept in Israel like that since the days of Samuel the prophet, and none of the kings of Israel had kept such a Passover as Josiah kept, with the priests and the Levites. All Judah and Israel who were present, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. In the 18th year of the reign of Josiah, this Passover was kept. After all this, when Josiah had prepared the temple, Necho, king of Egypt, came up to fight against Carchemish by the Euphrates. And Josiah went out against him. But he sent messengers to him, saying, What have I to do with you, king of Judah? I have not come against you this day, but against the house with which I have war. For God commanded me to make haste. Refrain from meddling with God, who is with me, lest he destroy you. Nevertheless, Josiah would not turn his face from him, but disguised himself so that he might fight with him, and did not heed the words of Necho from the mouth of God. So he came to fight in the valley of Megiddo. And the archers shot King Josiah. And the king said to his servants, Take me away, for I am severely wounded. His servants therefore took him out of that chariot, and put him in the second chariot that he had, and they brought him to Jerusalem. So he died, and was buried in one of the tombs of his fathers, and all Judah and Jerusalem mourned for Josiah. Jeremiah also lamented for Josiah, and to this day all the singing men and the singing women speak of Josiah in their lamentations. They make it a custom in Israel, and indeed they are written in the laments. Now the rest of the acts of Josiah and his goodness, according to what was written in the law of the Lord, and the deeds and his deeds from first to last, indeed they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. My name's Arthur, and I thank you for joining me as we share together from 2 Chronicles chapter 35. Josiah, when he becomes aware of the instructions of the word of the Lord, seeks to follow them, and instructs the Levites and priests to follow them. God's given us his word not just to sit on our shelves, or to remind us that he exists, but to give us detailed instructions about how we should live our lives, because that is the way of blessing. He designed life at all levels, from the universe to the atom, and everywhere in between, physical and social. And his instructions help us live in such a way that we cooperate with the creation that he's made. And so Josiah inaugurates a Passover, greater than the Passover that Hezekiah had led, for that was a very hurried affair, and had been the greatest since the time of Solomon, but Josiah's was the greatest since the time of Samuel. This account reveals just how busy the day is for the priests and Levites, and it was on such a day that the Lord Jesus was crucified. The Lord blesses the people during the time of Josiah, but he fails, another king who does according to his own wisdom and not according to the word of the Lord. He sees the Egyptians passing by, resisting the rising power of the Babylonians, and it is God's will to raise up the Babylonians to discipline the whole world, and the prophets had already said that. Josiah meddles in someone else's affairs and is killed in the process. Jeremiah the prophet was of a similar age to Josiah, no doubt brought up in the same schools, his father being Hilkiah the priest. He laments the death of Josiah, because this marks the beginning of the end for the kingdom of Judah, at the hand of the Babylonians.